I used to think that my story started with relationships, but it didn't. It started way earlier than that. It started with the environment that taught me what love, safety, and acceptance truly looked like. Today, I'm taking you back to the beginning, baby. I've spent a lot of time reflecting over the last few years, and I realized that so many of my decisions I made as an adult did not start in adulthood, right? They started with the beliefs that I was formed with as a child. And that's what today's conversation is going to be about. So, the kind of child that I was growing up, I was very inquisitive. I was very open. I was very strong willed, as some people would put it. And a lot of people took that as disrespect or not being able to listen to authority or challenging authority. And I was just so curious. I was so curious about the world and why things were the way they were. I asked the hard questions. And a lot of the adults in my life, whether it was coaches, teachers, mentors, um, parents, family members, it became very apparent that no one liked to talk about the hard things, right? Especially coming from a child. I think people automatically assume the worst. And it's like, no, I'm not questioning your authority. I'm trying to question what's going on. Why are we doing this? What is this giving us, right? What made me feel safe as a child was really myself and God, because I learned very quickly that I wasn't going to be safe in the home that I was being raised in. I never felt safe. I never felt like I was being heard. I never felt like my voice mattered. I never felt like my feelings mattered. I never felt like anyone was truly looking out for me and protecting me with genuine intent, right? It always seemed like there were strings attached, or I had to do this in order to get love from somebody. I had to act a certain way, behave in a certain way, talk a certain way, and basically kiss ass to get people to see me for who I was or just even acknowledge me in any way, shape, or form. So safety was always a very early thing that I learned that I was going to have to give myself. God gave me safety, and myself gave me safety. I loved being outside. I loved playing sports. Sports was like an escape for me, because I knew that I would, build a family within the team. And we were always spending time together. We were always practicing on how we can make ourselves better, whether it was academically, through the sport. And you build a sense of community and family when you play sports, right? Like you grow a bond with these people, whether it's girls, boys, whatever the team you're playing. But for me, it was girls, and I felt like we really started to gain a sense of community with each other. We were always together, even on weekends, because on weekends we would go to our coach's house and we would do fun games, things to just build our confidence, thing to build our bond as a team. So when we got on the court, it would all mesh together, right? I played a lot of sports growing up. I played pretty much everything except for water sports and softball. I did track, I did soccer, I did basketball, I did volleyball, um, and I loved them all. But volleyball ended up being the sport that I really latched onto. It was just so fun, and the thrill was so exciting, and I loved being able to showcase my talents and also build with people. It felt so comforting, and it felt like people saw me for who I was at that time, because sports was the only way I felt like I could express myself in any way, shape, or form. And I was really good. Like, I was really good. I should have went D1, but God had other plans, and I was very young and didn't have the proper guidance that I needed to really fulfill that at that time. I was afraid of a lot of things growing up because I realized that when a child realizes that their feelings are not being heard, when they realize that their feelings, their goals, their aspirations, their anything, when they realize that nothing matters to anyone else in the family or that to the people that you love, you start to really understand like how scary that is, because when you're a young child growing up in the world, you want to be heard, you want to be seen, you want to be understood. And my entire life was just a bunch of misconceptions about who I was. Everyone tried to label me, judge the book by its cover, and never truly got to know who I was. I was hanging around people for years and they didn't know me, right? They didn't know who I really was at my core. And it's not because I didn't show them, it's because they didn't want to see it. They chose to overlook it, they chose to ignore what I was actually giving them. And because it made them insecure, it made them feel some kind of way because it made them realize, like, okay, I'm maybe not doing all I could be doing. Or I wish I could be more like that. And then it became a jealousy, secret competition kind of thing. And so I realized very early on in my childhood that it was hard to really maintain solid, genuine connections with people because everyone was so surface level and I have so much depth that it just wasn't going to match. I dumbed myself down. I watered myself down. I hid who I was because I realized that when I was being my fun, goofy, silly self and also being deep and inquisitive and whimsical, people didn't like that, right? They didn't like that. They wanted to be that. And so they wanted to be the top dog or they wanted to be the showstopper in the room. But I do that naturally. I have a natural charisma about me. And people recognize that before I could even recognize it. And that was also the scary part because I realized that people would use my heart against me. They would use any tactic they could to make me feel less than, to keep me low vibrational, to keep me feeling like no one would love me and that no one would care for me in the way that I was truly looking for it, right? Um, what I needed but didn't really know how to ask for was pretty much everything, right? Because when you grow up in a household that people don't want to see you for who you are, they want to make an image out of you, they want to project their negative experiences, their negative views of life, how they look through life, like through that lens. I didn't know how to ask for anything because I wasn't taught that, right? It's like one of those things where like you know how you feel, but you can't express it. You know something's off, but you can't really pinpoint what it is, right? Because you're a child and your brain is still developing. You're trying to figure out how you want to say what you want to say without hurting people's feelings. How can I express myself without people trying to make it like I'm the bad guy or deflecting? And I didn't know how to ask for anything. But then when I got older, I started asking for like straight up, hey, I need support. Hey, I need love. Hey, I need guidance. And it was always brushed off like, oh, like I told you this, I told you that. But it was very generic, vague things that weren't going to do me any good. It wasn't developing me as a person. It didn't have substance, right? It was just a bunch of bullshit. And so it was scary for me because I felt trapped in my own body. I felt trapped in my emotions. I felt trapped in the person that I was trying to become because every time I would shine my light, people would try to dim it. Every time I tried to speak my truth, people would try to say, "Oh, you're just being naggy. Oh, you're being dramatic. Oh, you're too much." Like, when you get out in the real world, like that's not how the real world is. Like people don't put up with that. You take everything personal. You make everything about you. And the real reality is that no one wanted to actually listen to me and take heed to what I was saying. They just wanted to gaslight me into thinking that how I felt was wrong. I shouldn't feel that way. You shouldn't be acting that way, you know. And when I was very upfront about what I needed, no one could help me, or they chose not to help me, right? And so it becomes very sad to witness because you realize that all the people that you've been surrounding yourself with really don't give a fuck about you, like at all. And they don't even have remorse about not giving a fuck. They're just like, okay, like no one give a fuck about me, so figure it out. You'll be fine. I figured it out. Everyone figures it out at some point, so figure it out. And it was just like, yeah, that's not really how life goes though. So, you want to try that again? Or like, you know what I mean? Like, what is that doing for me? Like, you know what I mean? Um, and when I think about that little girl now, I wonder how different life would have been if she had known that this isn't how life is. This is not how you're supposed to be, right? This is not how you're supposed to function in the world, right? It's not a figure it out situation. That's not how this works. Parents always like to say, oh, there is no parenting book for how to be a parent. And it's like, yeah, there isn't, but just going based off of your childhood and how you were raised and how you were dismissed and how you were abused and how you were neglected and all the things, you should want to make sure that that doesn't happen to you, to me, right? You should make sure that it doesn't want to, you don't want that to happen to your child. But that just wasn't the case for my family. My family wanted to hurt me in any way they could. They always took a jab at me anytime they could, especially at my lowest moments, to make me more emotional, to make me more reactive, to make me out to be the bad guy for simply just wanting guidance and help and support and love in a genuine manner. Not fake love, but actual, genuine concern for how I was feeling and what I was going through at those times. Because when you're young, you're getting on your period, you're growing up, you got the hormones running now, and you're learning your body's doing things that you weren't used to it doing before. And you get the butterflies when you see a cute boy, and your heart's in your butt because you stayed out too late, and now you're trying to figure out how to figure out, like, come up with something. It's like every feeling that you have when you're young, you feel like the world is ending. And so when I didn't get the proper attention I needed, I felt like the world was ending. I was like, what the heck? Like, how can I figure out how to move past this if no one's willing to help me? I'm a child, right? Like, I need guidance. This isn't just something that just happens overnight. And they wanted me to learn it through me fucking up and trying to figure it out. But they still weren't willing to help me. They just punished me and made fun of me and criticized me and mocked me for not making the right decisions. But they never taught me how to make the right decisions. They just yelled at me or beat me or did whatever they could to try to prove a point. My environment was very volatile. I grew up with um, parents who, so my mother, she was very avoidant, very narcissistic, very like likes to play the guilt trip, likes to do reverse psychology. And so you learn at a very early age that, okay, this isn't going to go anywhere, right? The feelings that I had was just about every emotion you could think of, right? Every emotion that you could think of, not just the basic ones. I had them all. Um, Happy, sad, depressed, anxiety ridden, um, angry. Anger was a big one, right? Like, it was a lot more sad emotions than happy moments. And the reason that they were happy when they were is because I kept digging myself out of that hole to try to be like, okay, it's going to get better. I'm going to figure it out. This isn't the end. I'm going to figure it out, right? But no one else was telling me that. No one else was comforting me. No one else was giving me that reassurance. And I felt a lot of big emotions. I am an empath, but I was really trying to figure out how to function in the world with not being taught anything, right? My dad was just a raging alcoholic. Like, he was always upset, always angry, rah, 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 all the time. And the only time that he would be super nice and sweet to me was when he was drinking. Oh, I love you so much. Oh, I'm so happy you're my daughter and you're the best kid, and blah 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 blah, all these things, all these sweet things, wanting to hug and take pictures and doing all the things that I would want him to do when he's sober. But it was only when he was drunk that he would show any type of emotion outside of rage and anger, especially when I was growing up, because my parents divorced when I was really young, but they hated each other. They couldn't stand each other. They could not stand to even be in the same room with each other. Like, it was ridiculous. And I just couldn't handle that. Like, I couldn't handle seeing the two people that made me can't even function in the same room without cussing each other out, trying to fight, trying to throw jabs, trying to make the other one feel like shit, calling each other out of their names, because child support issues, my dad not showing up, my mom wants control, it was always something. There wasn't a whole lot talked about growing up. I think that um, I was always the one that was asking the hard questions. I was always the one trying to dig deeper, trying to figure out how my parents grew up, trying to figure out, I'm asking these things at a young age, right? So you can only imagine how narcissistic parents respond to that, because they don't want to talk about things that hurt them. They don't really want to get deep, right? But then their 10-year-old is asking like, okay, so how were you raised? Like, what how did you feel? And they would always just say, yeah, it wasn't, my mom would say, oh, it wasn't that bad. We went to do summer trips in the RV and, blah, blah, blah. But as I got older, I realized that she was lying. It wasn't sweet. It wasn't fun. Her parents didn't even want her because they had already had like 4 or 5 kids before her, or 6 or 7, one of those. Like, I can't remember how many siblings she has, but she has enough to where I think she was the sixth or seventh. And when they got to her, like, they weren't even trying to get pregnant. So it was like they were done. They didn't give a fuck about her. She was the youngest. And so the siblings kind of chipped in, but they could care less, right? My dad had a rough upbringing being in Jamaica. They were constantly getting robbed, stolen from, all the things. And his brother Anthony actually died, from what he told me, on the way home from either the bar or like just a night out with friends. And then they were riding like horses or mules, or a donkey, one of those. And he was going home, and these people obviously jumped out of the woodwork and robbed him for everything he had. Took the mule, took his jewelry, and then they killed him. So after that, my grandmother, my dad's mom, ended up bringing them to the United States because they were just like, yeah, we got to go. Like, this isn't safe here. Like, we got to go. Like, you know what I mean? And my grandmother was already battling so much with the father of her children, which was my dad's father. He was trying to kill her. He was trying to kick her stomach, abort the baby because he didn't want it. He was a Rolling Stone, and he didn't give a fuck about my dad at all. Um, and it was just sad to hear, because when you realize that your parents have all these wounds and they also don't want to talk about it, they're not actually trying to heal from it, you realize that they start giving that to you without them even knowing it, without you even knowing it. And so it's a hard situation to be in when you're trying to grow up and understand the world, but no one's willing to talk about anything because they don't feel like their childhood trauma affects their parenting, because they feel like they can compartmentalize it, but it's like, but they didn't though. They didn't. They absolutely didn't. And it showed in the way they responded to me. It showed in the way they treated me. It showed in the way that they showed up for me. It changed. It showed up in the way they loved me. It showed up in the way that they set examples for what life or relationships are supposed to even look like. Um, and it was just a really sad time because I couldn't understand why no one wanted to talk about the hard things. And if they did, it was only when they were drunk. What I learned about conflict was we're just gonna fight it out. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, Jamaicans are very hot-headed, and everyone was just like, let's fight, guns, stabbing, whatever. Cops always being called, and conflict was always just like a big issue because people didn't want to really actually sit down and talk about anything. They just really wanted to um, yell and argue and fight, right? It wasn't like calm and peaceful. And I get it. Like, when you're disagreeing with someone or having an argument, it's not always going to be peaches and cream. But I was never taught how to actually have a adult, mature conversation that you can display your emotional intelligence without trying to jab everyone in the knees, without trying to cut someone off the legs, without trying to hurt somebody in that process. Um, and it just felt like conflict was always there, and it was never talked about. It was just like, oh yeah, that's just how we handle things. Oh yeah, that's just what we do. They pissed me off, so I threatened to stab them. They cheated on me, so I, slashed all his tires. Like, huh? Like, you know what I'm saying? It's like that was normal. Everything that they were doing that was so volatile was so normal. And so often, especially in the black community, we get so desensitized to it. They were like, oh yeah, that's nothing. That's nothing. I saw my grandma put a gun to my grandfather's head, and it's like, yeah, you shouldn't have saw that. You shouldn't have saw that. And just because that happened doesn't make anyone else's story less traumatic because you saw something outrageous, right? And I think that is a topic that people need to talk about more because we get desensitized to a lot of fucked up shit, and we think, oh, you don't have it as bad as me because you didn't watch my mom get arrested. You didn't watch, your dad beat on my mom. And it's like, okay, yeah, that wasn't necessarily my story, but it was still enough to fuck me up. So that's all that matters, right? Like, People want to compare trauma and be like, oh, they want to like top your trauma. And it's like, what are we doing? What are we talking about here? Like, what are we talking about? And that's another thing my parents did. They'd always be like, oh, you have it so much better than me. Like, you don't have to see all the stuff I saw and you don't have to go through the things I saw. But it's like, yeah, but because you didn't heal that, you're unintentionally or intentionally bringing that to me. It's a burden now that is on my back because you never learned how to do that and heal and have a hard conversation. So now I have to deal with it. Now I have to figure out how to do these things because you're unwilling to teach me. Or you think that the way that you're telling me or showing me is a good example. And it just wasn't. It just wasn't at all. Um, and affection was something that I realized was really for show. Everyone in my family wasn't really big on affection, mom or dad side. Everyone was weird huggers, don't know how to be vulnerable, doesn't know how to display their emotions, doesn't know how to tell someone they love them and mean it, doesn't know how to really care or support or have sympathy for people, compassion, humility. Like none of those things were a thing. And affection was really like a bribe. It was like, hey, I'm going to kiss you and love on you because I need you to do something for me. I'm going to have sex with you, but it's because I really need you to do this, or I'm going to hug you because you asked me to, not because I wanted to, but because you asked me to hug you. You asked me to say that you love me, whatever, right? It was always like I had to initiate the affection. Always had to beg for the affection. Always had to ask why we don't hug. Why is everyone always arguing? Why does affection seem like a bargaining chip instead of just genuine and honest and real, right? And so I learned at a very early age that using your body is a way to get people to do what you want or you think that way, right? And a lot of my family did that. And then that manifested in my relationships because I was dating men that wanted me to do things in order for them to love me properly, right? And it's like, that's not how this goes. I don't have to have sex with you if I don't want to. But a lot of the relationships that I was in would pressure me to have sex with them even when we were together. And they're like, oh, that's not rape because we're together. It's like, no, if I don't want to have sex with you, I don't have to have sex with you. And the fact that you're trying to coerce me into having sex with you is a big issue. It's actually a problem because I'm telling you no and you're not respecting my boundaries. I'm telling you no, but you're still forcing yourself on me or when I'm sleeping. Or, oh, now all of a sudden we're going to have sex after an argument, like that toxic love shit. And it was like, you think that that's a turn on to you? Because right now I don't want you to be near me. I don't even want you to be breathing the same air as me. And you want to have sex. Because you think sex is just going to make everything go away. No, that's just not how that works. Like, it just isn't. And I thought love looked like overworking yourself, bending your back, breaking your back to literally run yourself ragged to get someone to love you. Love is earned, right? That's what I was taught. Love is earned. You don't just get it freely. You don't just get it because I love you. You have to work for that. And that's what I was taught, intentionally and unintentionally, because I saw my mom do that. She was breaking her back for men that wouldn't even think twice about her. They weren't doing anything spectacular, but she had to do certain things for them to do certain things. And it just really started showing me that love is earned. My mom didn't love me freely. She loved me when I made her look good. She loved me when I would shut up and listen. She loved me when I would act like a robot and do what she wanted me to do. She didn't love when I asked questions. She did not love my curiosity. She did not love my inquisitiveness. She did not love the strong-willed child that I was because it challenged her authority. And she felt less than when I would ask a question or when I would say, hey, that hurt my feelings. Can we talk about that? Or, whatever, right? And so it was really hurtful to really like be in that situation, especially at a young age when you don't know how to really form words, because you already know that when you go to have this conversation, you're going to be cut off at the knees. They're not really going to listen because they're listening to respond and not listening to actually hear what I'm saying. And that was another big problem, is that everyone was listening to respond. They weren't actually listening to me. They just wanted to pick apart what I was saying, the tone, whatever word format I was using. It was like, oh, well, why'd you say it like that? Or why are you being smart? I'm the parent, you're the child, and you're not going to talk to me like that. And, da da da. And it was just like, what is going on here? Like, what is going on? Um, and the role that I thought that I played in the family, or that I was playing in the family, was simply to basically heal everybody. When I saw people, I can see the pain through the smile. I can see the lies that you think are wrapped in truth. I can read body language. I can read between the lines. I can sense the energy, right? And a lot of people didn't like that about me because they knew I was spot on, but they would always gaslight me into thinking that I was wrong because they didn't want to be caught out, right? They didn't want to be like, oh my gosh, she can actually see me for who I am and not who I'm pretending to be. And so I felt like it was my responsibility to heal all these people, grown adults. I thought it was my job to do that because I wasn't quite understanding why no one else was doing it. And so I came along and had the empathy and had the willpower and had the determination to really try to change the narrative for my family lineage, and no one else was on board but me. No one else was on board with doing that. They wanted to ostracize me. They wanted to make me the outcast simply because I wanted them to heal, simply because I wanted them to see themselves for who they were, not to punish them or to mock them or condemn them or judge them, but just simply to say, hey, like, that's probably not productive. Like, probably shouldn't be saying that to me or anyone. Like, those are hurtful things. And so you should reflect on that so you don't have to be treating people like that. You know what I mean? Like, why would you want to treat someone in that way that you say you love? Like, that just is fucked up. You know what I mean? Like, that's not what you do when you love somebody. And it just became so obvious that people didn't give a fuck. No one in my family cared at all, in the slightest, at all, about how their actions, words, behavior would affect other people around them. Um, and people always used to say that. My family used to say, you don't realize that the decisions you're making not only affect you, but everyone around you. They used to preach that to the bone. And it's like, looking back, it's like, y'all should have been telling yourself that. Because all the decisions that you guys made inevitably hurt me. But you didn't care because you thought I was just a child. I just have to suck it up and keep going. I just have to figure it out. Who cares? Right? And it was just like, so, like, the irony and the fact that these people were trying to gaslight me and make me feel like I was the problem, but their decisions led to me making my decisions. Their decisions to create a certain environment made me start creating that environment for myself. Because when you're a child, you grow up in an environment and then you just start doing the same things. Because again, you think it's normal. You think this is just what everyone goes through. You think this is what everyone has in their life or in their family. And it just couldn't be the farthest thing from the truth. I learned at a very early age that keeping everyone else happy was more important than speaking up. It was more important than my own peace. I learned to apologize before I even knew if something was even my fault. And that's something I carried into adulthood, and I'm still learning to break that curse because I would do something or say something and I'm apologizing for something that's not even my fault, right? It's them doing something to hurt me, but instead of them being able to be emotionally intelligent and apologize and take accountability, they would turn it on me and make it feel like it was my fault. So then I started apologizing. It was just like, I'm sorry, like, because I was scared they were going to leave. I was scared that they were going to use this as leverage against me to try to paint me out to be some bad guy when that couldn't have been the farthest thing from the truth. Um, I believe that love had to be earned. And that really, really fucked me up because I felt like I had to perform a certain way, I had to act a certain way, I had to talk a certain way in order for people to love me. And that's just not love. That's control. That's narcissistic tactics, right? And it really altered my brain chemistry because that's all I grew up with. Those very things, thinking that love is earned. I confused chaos with connection, right? Control for love. And that's not love or connection, right? Chaos is something that the devil will use to keep you distracted. They will keep you in a low vibrational state. It'll keep you confused. It'll keep you on high alert. Your cortisol levels are high. You're always anticipating for the next shoe to drop because it feels like nothing can ever go right. And it feels like everything you do is not right. Everything you say is wrong. Everything you do is wrong. Everything you try to do to help people, they make it out like you're the whole opposite of what you are. And it really hurt my feelings because I just didn't understand what was going on. I'm like, I don't get this. How did I just go to the store, buy my mom her birthday card, her brand new shoes, her all these things? I bought her flowers, and she's still ungrateful. I'll never forget this. I was in like middle school at the time. I didn't have no money. I wasn't working yet. And I reached out to all of her friends through Facebook and was like, hey, I want to do a surprise birthday for my mom. Could you guys help me get this together? Can you guys help me get the food, get the decor, get all the stuff, and just lie and say that her dog got out and she has to come home, and then everyone will be there. And that's exactly what happened. Everyone came together and did that for her. And it was just like my young self at like 12, 13, 14 wanted to surprise birthday party my mom, and I didn't even have the money to do it, but I was hoping that everyone would come together because they loved her, and they did, right? But it was like I was doing more. Like, I didn't even have a surprise party at that age. I didn't have a surprise birthday party until I was 16. And that was because I had mentioned that I wanted one. Like, I've never had one. I would love to do that. I think that would be so awesome to just walk in a room full of people that love you and they surprised you. They all came up with it. They kept it from you. They put the time and energy into like really celebrating you without you even knowing. And it was just like, how did I give my mom one before she gave me one? Like, that's actually insane. Like, you know what I mean? And so it's like, how do these beliefs follow me into adulthood? Right? Because people so often feel like, oh, well, my childhood was traumatic, but I'm over that now. I'm good now. Like, fuck it. I said, fuck it and moved on. And it's like, no, because your childhood is your foundation for how you're going to be in the world. That's why they always say, like, that age range, whatever it is, like 5, 12, or whatever it is like crucial for brain development for a child, because that's when they're learning themselves. That's when they're learning how the world works, how people love, how people act, all the things. And when you brainwash a child into thinking that love has to be earned, this is what it is, this is how it's going to be, you start realizing that all the things that they didn't heal from, they passed to me. And then I grew up and was like, yeah, I'm doing the same shit one way or another, right? In one way, shape, or form, I'm acting, believing, doing these things that are harmful to me, not realizing that it was how I was raised. I didn't just start picking bad men out of nowhere. My father was a piece of shit. My grandfather was a piece of shit. My uncles were a piece of shit. Aunties were a piece of shit. Everyone was not right. They didn't know how to articulate themselves in an adult manner. They didn't know how to have the hard conversations. Everyone just wanted to scream and yell. And if they didn't get their way, we just won't talk for 6 months. I don't give a damn. Fuck your kid's birthday. Fuck Thanksgiving. I don't give a damn. And it was just like, what the fuck is going on? You know, and you don't realize that you're doing it until you're in it. You don't realize that you're acting in the same ways in one way, shape, or form until you're knee deep in a situation where you're like, okay, this is starting to make sense now. Like, because this isn't who I really am, but it's so second nature to me. It's habitual. You know what I mean? Like, you grow up around that, you're gonna do it. Like, that's just what it is. Like, yes, we can know it's wrong. Yes, we can know that that's not how we would act. But when that's all you know, it's the first line of defense that you're going to use in relationships and friendships and partnerships. How you move through life, how you view the world, how you see other people. Is the glass half full or it half empty? And everyone in my family said it was bone dry. Fuck half empty. They said it was dry. Ain't shit in the world. Everyone's fucked up. No one gives a fuck about you. You just gonna have to figure out life like I did. Survival of the fittest. And I was like, yeah, I'm not doing that. Like, I'm sorry, but I'm just not doing that. Like, healing didn't start when my circumstances changed. The healing started when I began questioning the beliefs that I had carried for years, right? Sometimes healing doesn't begin by changing your future, but it begins by understanding your past. And I had to really self-reflect on what I was becoming, who I was becoming, how I viewed the world. How am I going to be able to function in society if this is all I know? I didn't have a good example of what love looked like. I didn't have a good example of a good friendship. I didn't have a good example of a strong provider, protector man that truly loves his wife, that truly wants to provide for her, not because he feels obligated, but because he wants to, right? Because he loves her that much that he would do anything for her, not to use it as leverage later on, not to throw it in her face, but to actually be a stand up man and truly take care of his family and want that for himself and for his children and for his wife, right? Um, and a lot of people want to glaze over the past, they want to glaze over childhood, but that is our foundation, right? That's the foundation for how children grow up and operate in the world. And people will try to say that it's not, but it absolutely is. But because they don't see the pattern recognition, because they don't see how their trauma affects the way they think, the way they breathe, the way they move, the way they make decisions, the way that they treat other people or view the world, they think like, oh, no, that didn't affect me. No, I'm fine. I'm good. Like, I got over that a long time ago. No, you've been drinking yourself to death for the last 25, 30 years. You've been surrounding yourself with people who actually don't even care about you, but because you can't stand to be by yourself, you don't give a fuck. You want to surround yourself with a bunch of nobodies because you can't stand to sit in silence and reflect, self reflect on who you are and why you became this evil person. And I refuse to be that. I refuse to be like my mom, my family, anybody. I refuse to continue the cycle. And that's why I got casted as the black sheep, the outcast. Oh, there's something wrong with her. But it was simply because I wasn't willing to continue the generational curses. It was simply because I stood up in the face of adversity and said, I refuse to be this. And when I have kids, I'm not going to be doing this. It's not going to change overnight, right? Because I'm still actively working on those things. But I know that that's a pattern that had to be broken. I wasn't going to continue to be the same way my parents were. It was unhealthy. It was unstable. It was very chaotic. It was traumatizing. It had me in a state of fight or flight constantly, in a state of survival. And no one gave a fuck because they were also in survival and fighting for their lives. I hope today's conversation encourages you to become more curious about your own story. Not so you can stay stuck in it, but so you can actually understand it and really start self reflecting on how you became the person that you are today, right? Because understanding creates awareness, and awareness creates healing, and healing creates freedom and peace. And I think that is so important and vital for your evolution, for your healing, for your growth, for really everything. Because knowledge is power, and really sitting down to reflect on your life, sitting down to reflect on your childhood and how you wish that things could have been different, how your parents raised you was so hurtful, but you had to learn how to suck it up and continue to move on without support, without guidance, without any remorse from these people that led you down a path of destruction because they were on a path of destruction and they never healed from that, right? So I hope that you guys take some things away from this. I hope that you guys continue to evolve and grow and just really take the time to self reflect, because it's not to bring up the past wounds and rip them open, but that is what's going to happen because you have to really sit and reflect and cry it out, scream it out, journal it out, talk to a therapist, you know, do the things, but actually really dive deep and see how these things truly affected you and how you would have wanted to be raised. What did your little inner child wish they could have had that they never got from their family, from their friends, from whoever? And how did that shape the way that you ended up viewing the world, right? Did people use love against you? Were people always trying to gaslight you, reverse psychology, always trying to make it seem like your emotions are too much for them? They can't handle that. They just want to shrink you, right? And so when you realize that that was what you were taught, you start realizing that, yeah, damn, I didn't have boundaries. I never got taught how to have a boundary. I never got taught how to stand up for myself. I never got taught how to properly express without trying to hurt someone's feelings, cutting at the jugular, right? I never learned how to be my own self and stand in my own identity because everyone wanted me to be whatever they wanted me to be and not who I was meant to be, right? So I love you guys, and I hope that you guys continue to stay with me on this journey. I will be uploading a video every Wednesday, and I hope that you guys stay tuned for more. And just stay safe, love yourself, put yourself first because you matter. And the people that we're creating in this world should be proud of who they are. They should look in the mirror and say, damn, I'm proud of myself. Damn, I really did that. Damn. I stood up to my abuser. I was able to, do the hard thing, cut off the people because ultimately no one else can change your life but you. You have to put the hard work in and you have to want better for yourself, not just for the reward that comes with it, but to genuinely have peace from the inside out. So I love you guys. Stay tuned for more. Talk soon.